Looking good. Oh, wait. I'm going to hide myself. Do you ever hide yourself?
I hide myself all the time.
I'm going to be hiding you.
Yes. I have to be hidden, my friends. Please protect my identity. They're coming
Did,
after me.
did you ever expect yourself to be so clandestine? Or is this a unexpected
No,
development?
no, no.
Is it kind of fun or just worrisome?
No. Although I do like to wear wigs and dress up.
Oh,
Halloween is my favorite
you should have told
holiday.
me.
Oh, you have some?
But if I'm gonna no, well, not this time. I could get a funny hat on, but I don't know what how deep we're gonna go, and to what extent that will ruin my credibility, and then put egg on your face. So
Well, this will not be a lighthearted discussion. I'll tell you that. So I'll just tee it up that way.
let's
Usually,
see.
when I speak, nobody walks away with a big smile on their face.
Oh wow, okay. Is this like a lifelong phenomena for you?
Gosh, I hope not.
Okay,
No,
okay.
I was fun. I was fun before I got hit in the face with the gender ideology pie.
We don't have to put this in the recording, but there was some news coming out of San Francisco about a recall. I was wondering if you had any connection or knowledge of that. I don't know if you're in that area of the country.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Okay. Yeah. They're trying to recall some school board people for being, I guess the technical term is ass hats.
Which school district is this?
San Francisco.
Oh, I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, all the school boards need to be they all need to be run out of town, but
Yeah.
at least or grow, get some backbone.
It's a big mess. There's a lot of big messes right now. But we can focus on just one and discover how you discovered that.
Sure.
You said gender ideology pie. Was it like a meringue or a pudding?
It was a little more painful than that. So what's one with daggers in it? I don't
Oh
know.
no. Okay, yeah. Like lychees or something like that, or spicy mace pie.
Maze pie. That's probably more like it. Clorox blinded me. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm good. We're the typical ROGD story, rapid onset of gender dysphoria,
What age?
13.
Okay. What website?
Oh, gosh, so many.
Yeah.
Where to begin? She was actually more groomed by an actual individual, a live person.
Okay. With authority?
No, just a cooler 16-year-old.
And it came out of nowhere for you?
Well, out of nowhere, in that as a young child, she was uh, like absurdly girly, almost annoyingly so. Everything had to be pink and sparkly and flowers and didn't like anything boy related. And I'm a bit of a tomboy myself. So I had to learn some new tricks and learn to
What like
play dollhouse and American Doll. And so very traditional girly things. And then on the onset of puberty, she started to just get a little down in the dumps. Friend groups came and went, the normal kind of angst a kid goes through. And then slowly moved away from all the girly stuff that she liked and took on a new persona.
were there I have heard and read that there's crossover with, well, one, undiagnosed for females, autism or spectrum, like neuro I don't know, formation or divergency, but I don't understand what that term is because I don't think anybody's on the straight and narrow when it comes to the gray matter. But was there a proclivity for hypercategorization or very literalism or depressive kind of before the puberty hit?
No, no, nothing like that. She really wanted one of those labels. She was searching for a mental health label. She wanted to be diagnosed with OCD or autism or ADHD. Like there's almost a competition among teenage girls to get the best mental health diagnosis, and best meaning the worst. So she was searching for that. So there was definitely a need to be labeled as something.
Mm-hmm. Did you experience that in that time of your life? Were you searching for a label or?
No, no.
I'm a Gen Xer, so we did have we kind of had labels, but not really by the time I was coming around. Like even the nerd jock dichotomy, just everybody just kind of was. I mean, you're kind of cool or not cool, or you're, I guess, a youth group kid or, you know, a band kid or something like that. So we kind of defined ourselves over what we did or what we participated in, not what we were or are.
Right. It wasn't a self-given label, I think, when we were growing up. You just acquired it. If you were sporty, you had the sporty label. If you were a nerd, you had the nerd label. I mean, I ran the gamut. I was a tomboy, sporty, a nerd. I was all of them. So I was just me. And that was actually, dovetails into an interesting discussion, because after my daughter went to through Teen Talk, here on the West Coast, they do Teen Talk, which is, I think, 9 hours of instruction about the birds and the bees.
Okay.
That's when, she came home with a new label. She got rid of the OCD label and she got new labels, and all of her friends got labels. They all put themselves in some kind of box. And, as a parent, we raised our kids to not have any labels. Like what you like, do what you do. That's why there's, 31 flavors of ice cream. Everybody likes a different flavor. But just be. Don't limit yourself. And her Teen Talk, I guess, gave her a whole pull-down menu of boxes to be in. You're pansexual, you're bisexual, you're polyamorous. I mean, they're in 7th grade. They're not any of those things. They're kids. I wonder where that box was. They didn't give them that option. Very bizarre.
It is very bizarre, and the thought processes behind that, we could go down a lot of different interpretive avenues. Like, why are those boxes being presented to developing minds who are in 7th grade, 8th grade, 6th grade? You are in flux. You're not really even a human being, because every day you're changing and rearranging and stuff. So I understand if I would try to steelman it to inform these young minds that there's all these different inclusive ways of being. There's no moral thing that you have to be. Not everybody has to be straight. And then, some people are gay. But then that dichotomy had to be complexified and then get chopped up and sliced up. And it's hard not to think that there's some sort of either intentional or unintentional malignant will behind giving kids those labels, but I don't know. So how did you enter into discussion about sexuality in terms specifically of identity? How did you guys navigate that?
Well, I think first I went in to find out what all these labels meant and what my child was being taught at the school. Because literally all of her friends had some label. Nobody was straight, and they actually called straight kids basic, like it was pejorative. Who wants to be that? Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I went to the parenting night on Teen Talk, and to learn what was my kid exposed to, and that's when they went through this, an hour of nobody's G.I. Joe and nobody's Barbie, but those are the ultimate man woman. Everybody's in the middle. And I said, well, that makes sense. That's a reasonable, I agree. Nobody's Barbie, nobody's G.I. Joe. And then the next hour, they went into all the boxes again, all the labels, like where you fall in. And I just kept asking questions. I said, this doesn't make any sense to me. Why are we saying we're all on a spectrum, but now you want everybody in this pigeonholed box? It was nonsensical to me, just absolutely nonsensical. And I didn't think that much of it after I left the class, except to say, why am I the only one asking questions? Mm-hmm. Is this making sense to anyone? This doesn't make sense to me.
Were the trainers able to reason their thinking?
No. Eventually they told me to be quiet and to save my questions for the end. And then when the end came, they packed their stuff and ran out of there. And I just looked around at the audience like, anybody buying this? I'm not buying this.
Did you get any feedback from the other parents?
There were a couple other parents that were like, yeah, this doesn't make a lot of sense.
Okay.
And we all kind of walked out there and thought innocently enough, like big deal, until I got hit in the face with a pie. Until my daughter then said, well, I'm trans. And now then I look back and I said, well, this is how you got here.
Okay. Was she able to reason through these categories from girly and then not being girly and then wanting to be this kind of sexual, that kind of sexual, and then be this gender thing?
Well, she tried to deny her history, which is a very typical thing that these kids do. They're actually coached on the internet what they're supposed to say and what they're supposed to do. So, she would go back to, well, I've been feeling this since 5th grade or 4th grade. And of course, the pictures all belie that fact. But, in her mind, she's been feeling this from the age of 10. This has always been a part of her. Mm-hmm. And that's just not true.
What has been a part of her? Was she able to conceptualize what this trans thing was to her, or what this?
No. I would ask her questions like, what makes you feel like you're a boy? And she would say, well, I don't like my period. Mm-hmm. And I'd say, okay, well, what else? I don't like my breasts. Okay. Well, you just told me why you don't like being a girl. Tell me why you think that you're a boy. And then the conversation would break down. Like anytime I would ask those kinds of probing questions, she couldn't answer them. And that's okay. That's part of the methodology of getting your child out of this, is to ask questions that they can't answer in a loving, kind way, and then walking away and hope that later they think about it and think, I can't answer that. I asked her if, because the Johnson & Johnson vaccine had come out and it was more dangerous allegedly for females, I said, well, is that more dangerous for you? And she said, yeah, and screamed at me. And of course, I know that. I know I'm female. Okay. Okay.
So female in her physical sex and her gender identity, she could tell them apart, or she knew when one thing was being spoken of. And
Apparently.
yeah.
Apparently. I mean, they don't think cogently. They're 13. You know, they throw a lot of things from what they hear on the internet. You'd hear social construct. That's a social construct. Well, what does that mean? Can't answer that question.
A cell phone is a social construct, and then you just take it away from her.
Well, I did do that. That was my method.
Okay, how did that work then? How did you navigate that?
Well, once she came out as transgender, and I was able to, at that point, mentally, she was in a really fragile, bad place, extremely depressed. And I was able to get into her phone. She gave me all of her passwords. And I quickly discovered that the social media that I was tracking on her was her fake social media. So she would have one Instagram account that mom and dad would look at, and then another one. And in looking at all of that, I mean, she was on Twitter. She had pedophiles, literally pedophiles, contacting her, 25-year-old men. And I know this because I called them. I would call these random numbers in her phone. They communicate through Pinterest even, which I had no idea. Again, Gen Xer. I got into TikTok accounts. I got into everything, and I just started to see all the groomers and all the other kids that were grooming each other. It's really quite alarming. I saw texts among 14-year-old girls teaching each other how to find sugar daddies. And it was real. This is real. This was,
so
yeah.
The 14-year-old, like this weird kind of twisted babysitters club. I'm sure there's some sort of weird story out there about girls doing this at some point. So these 14-year-old girls would teach each other to get sugar daddies, which I suppose that they're exchanging one thing for another thing. Is this all happening under the umbrella of the LGBTQ plus I gender flux thing? And how does that make sense that these girls are maximizing the heterosexual evolutionary dynamic under the umbrella of this non-heterosexual ideology or queer ideology?
Well, here's how it works. So when you put FTM on your profile, which is female to male, it is like a beacon. It is like a siren out there into the internet world where people say that is a girl who's having issues. So they are found. They're found. Then these girls chat together, and because they are truly boys, their breasts really aren't their bodies. Their bodies are not really their bodies. So using those bodies is like using somebody else.
So it's like a meat avatar. It's no different than your Twitter account. It's just
right. It's really not you that's selling these naked pictures. It's not your body, and it's not going to be your body in the future because you're not going to have those bits anymore. So that's how that mentality works. Yeah.
There's a slight legal problem of 14-year-olds selling nudes of themselves, is there not? And are you aware of any criminal justice activity that's going on to investigate this?
Well, when I saw the text going back and forth, I called the police, um, and they told me that we didn't have a case because luckily my daughter was smart enough to say, "I'm not doing that. Don't do that. I'll send you money. Please don't do that. It's a bad idea." But it was up to the parents of the other kids to prosecute, and I only could get the true identity of one of the kids on the chat rooms because they all have fake names and they're all over the country. And that mom didn't want to pursue anything. But the police did tell us that this is how trafficking of kids happens. It's it's through the internet. It's through these back channels of getting money for pictures, and then it just continues on.
So, not to put too fine a point on this, if school is teaching them that they can be all these different sexualities, and then in some cases even allowing them to socially transition, and that is happening in an official capacity, and that's translating into behavior where these young minors are now trafficking themselves sexually. It seems to be a school to prostitution pipeline going on here. So even if they're not groomed in school, the outcome is that they're becoming more and more likely to be trafficked or to traffic themselves.
Well, I'm going to tell you that I believe that they are groomed in school. I don't think the teachers know that that's what they're doing. I think some of them do, but certainly not all of them know that they're grooming these kids.
Okay. How is that? I would like the strongest possible case for that. So how are they being groomed in school? How is this happening, that they're turning into sex slaves or sex sellers or sex workers in a way?
Well, you can go to the California Teachers Association. You can go to their website and you can watch some of the videos where you have teachers teaching other teachers that 7-year-olds are sexual beings, 7-year-olds, that they need LGBTQ clubs at the K through, at all grades. You can hear teachers talking about TK. Do you know what TK is?
Oh no, do I want to know?
That's why I said nobody's ever happy after they talk to me. Yeah, TK is kids that are not quite ready for kindergarten, so they're 4. And so there are teachers that are reading I Am Jazz to that age group, 4, saying that doctors can make mistakes and that a child can be born in the wrong body and a girl can be a boy and a boy can be a girl. So they're planting the seed. They're planting the seed that their bodies really aren't their bodies. And
that their bodies are sexual and not really their bodies, or could possibly not be their bodies. So that's teaching them that dissociation in this very specifically about sexuality, which is a very powerful, profound kind of life and mind altering activity. And then they're planting seeds to make that much more malleable and manipulatable by somebody who can kind of convince them this way or that way.
Right. It normalizes sexuality in a young person's mind when they can't comprehend it.
Kind of the cart before the horse kind of thing. It won't become what? I'm sorry.
It won't become weird for, an adult to talk to them about sex then, because they've already heard it from their kindergarten or first grade teacher.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, 7th grade, learning the word polyamorous. What 11-year-old knows about being polyamorous or pansexual?
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what that means? I didn't know what that meant.
Well, I don't know. Some people are earlier bloomers than others. I remember some girl and some boys would have, like, they would be a part of the hookup culture and hold hands with one guy and then another guy. But like the do-si-do, but that's not really polyamory. That they're not shacking up. Well, one
Right.
wouldn't think they're doing that.
Yeah. So yeah, the schools have a big hand in this, and the schools are getting worse and worse in the grooming of kids. I mean, I find that it's grooming to take a child and let that child change his or her name and his or her pronouns outside of the parents. And I think that's the definition of grooming, keeping secrets from the parents.
And teaching, in the process, teaching the children that they need to have a kind of another persona, their true public persona.
Right. And triangulating. I mean, how confusing to a child to believe that the person that raised them and the person that they hopefully love unconditionally is actually the bad person, and the teacher is the good person, the only safe person. I like to tell this story about my daughter. When she started ninth grade, it was, the pandemic, never stepped foot in the door of that school. And they changed her name. They changed her name and her pronouns. And when I called the school and read them the riot act, said, what color's her hair? How tall is she? Fat, skinny? What's her favorite color? They knew nothing about my child. Nothing. But they changed her identity? I mean, think about that. They changed what she thought of herself. And they were self-righteous about it.
On what basis? Were they able to reason through this challenge?
We need to, we need to have a safe space for the child. Sometimes this is the only safe place for them. Well, then, by extension, I must be unsafe, I said. And apparently I was, because CPS showed up at my door.
They called Child Protective Services for you trying to protect your child against public schools.
They did. Now, coinciding with that, I had already told the school, because I was aware of the internet use, and I said, can we put in safeguards for my child? Block some YouTube, block some sites, because pedophiles are in contact with my child. So they had also, found some kind of search my daughter did is how many, well, I don't want to tell this story because it might identify her, but some kind of indication, like, could you die from, eating Pop Rocks? Something similar to that. And they said that was a suicide claim. So they sent CPS to my house. But I believe that it was because I refused to call her the male name. And I believe that because I am involved in a parent group and there are 90 of us in my local area. And my story about having CPS come to my house because of the name and pronoun is not an outlier. It's happened to at least 3 other families. And it will continue to happen because the California Teachers Association wants the name usage and pronouns to be considered child abuse against parents.
And the CPS is at their beck and call, or is there structures in place where we can not allow police or criminality to be used, or the bludgeon of the state to be used to enforce the teachers' union's will?
Child Protective Services is also captured by the gender ideology. They, all these groups are taught one version of gender identity, and that version is that support equals affirmation 100%. And that's it. That's the only lens you can look through, is that you are doing the wrong thing if you don't affirm your child's chosen identity, whatever it is.
It's abuse.
Yes. Yes.
So if we just run a thought experiment, the teachers union working in conjunction with CPS now has in loco parentis, they basically become the parents of these children up to a certain point. And then when the parents don't agree, they take the children away. So it could be the case that we're just going to have a whole bunch of trans residential schools. Like we're going to have to build a reservation and all these housing. I mean, where is all the money going to come from if they're going to take the children from the taxpayer and the taxpayer has no say over it? I mean, what's the limiting principle for this?
I don't know what the end game is. I don't know what the end game is. I mean, all I know is that the school that was so concerned about my child, that public school, when I pulled her from that school and sent her to another school, nobody called to see how she was doing. They didn't care after that. They got their pat on the back. We did the right thing. We gave the safe space. We let this girl use a boy name. Yippee-yi-yay. We don't care about that kid. So yeah, I don't know what the end game is. I don't know. I don't know why parents are considered the evil one in every avenue.
What do you mean beyond the gender thing? The enemy? How are the parents the enemy in other ways?
Well, I wrote an article about our local Catholic school that also thought it was in my daughter's best interest to call her by a male name.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
I guess that's
Is
a
this
really
like a very specific form of California Catholic or something? It doesn't seem Catholic.
I think the really important part of what I'm saying here is that it's not just the public schools that are falling into the let the child lead. The child knows him or herself, the authentic self. We need to protect this child. It's all over the private schools, the $50,000 a year private schools, the small private schools, the big private schools, the Catholic private schools, which really that honestly blew my mind. But kind of going back to where the parents get beaten up. So I wrote an article about it under a pseudonym, and the readers bashed me on the one end. Why am I such a coward that I won't reveal the school? Why won't I reveal myself? I'm lying. And then on the other end, I have the trans activists saying, I'm a bad parent. My child should be taken from me. I'm evil. We just get beaten up. Either way.
You said there's 90 people in your group that's local. That's an insanely high number, depending on what you mean by local. Maybe you're in LA and there's millions of people around you, but still, this is not uncommon. It's not uncommon. What are some of the ways that you guys are working together and that other parents out there can find strategies of coping with the child, but also starting to strategize against these organizations that are incredibly powerful and doing this, what I think is not unfair to say, evil work? sorry to go there, but
No, I'm glad you brought that up, because there's a trajectory as a parent. First you save your child.
yeah.
First, your first year in this, or 2 years in this, is absolute hell. And you're just trying to keep your child alive and healthy in your relationship. And then you get angry. And I'm at the angry spot. And you think, what can we do to stop this? Because this has to stop, especially now that they're hitting the 4-year-olds and the 5-year-olds in school. We have to raise awareness and start fighting back. And what I have been trying to do is get all the groups that are fighting against this to join forces. And it's strange, bedfellows, for sure. I'm a Democrat.
Oh no, are you saying you're polyamorous on a political level?
Totally. Yes. Don't shame me. Yeah, I'm a little bit loose when it comes to my bedfellows at the moment. But for a much more Puritan reason. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I am trying to get the Catholics, the evangelicals, the lesbians, the radical feminists, the Republicans, the critical-minded Democrats. We all have skin in this game. There is a common thread, which is to safeguard children and youth, because at 18, they still don't know what they're doing. We all need to be fighting this together and put all those other differences aside just for a moment, because there's a lot of us, and the sleeping giant is the parents of young kids that don't know what is headed their way. And we're bigger than they are. We will be more funded than they are. And there's way more of us than there are on the activist side. And we need to vote that way. I mean, I don't think I'd ever say this. Well, I'm on your podcast, so I'm going to say it. But I mean, I'm voting Republican in 2022. I have no choice but to support a party that is benefiting families. It's what happened in Virginia. I hope it happens across the country. I hope maybe Democrats wake up and see that the wokeism is not something that families appreciate.
I'm in a tough spot right now because how things are shaping up in Canada and how things have been shaping up with the media machine and our current administration putting things in place to call political dissidents enemies of the state and to enable themselves to go after bank accounts and to cast anybody who says, let's say, if you happen to vote for Trump, maybe your name's on a list now. I wouldn't put it beyond, I mean, even AOC was calling for these lists to be formed. So I'm sorry, I'm a little black-pilled right at this moment. I'm trying to find my spiritual light and stuff, but what's to stop them from completely strangling any sort of pushback to this? I mean, how do we form a solid enough coalition? Like, I don't know if there's some sort of idea base or value set that we can really lock in, because things might get really, really tough, and they will be tough I mean, you guys are on the front lines. Parents of ROGDs are on the front lines, and there's academics who are on the front lines with the cancel culture thing. You know, there's a lot of people who have suffered already, but this stuff won't stop until there is a very firm resistance. And so I guess there's steps to get that to happen sooner rather than later. So I'm wondering if you have any thoughts on strategy.
If you could give those to me, if anybody could give those to me. Look, I was not an activist. I was a mom and a professional. This is a whole new persona I've taken on, and I'm just figuring out what my superpowers are, or if I have any, to change this. I don't know. I mean, I just learned how to use Twitter.
Okay. There we go. Welcome
So
aboard.
I'm a true Gen X, but I think it's going to happen. In the year and a half that I've been involved in this, I've seen an enormous amount of change. More and more people. Well, parents are coming out in droves. People are running for office. People are standing up at school board meetings. The lawsuits. I mean, that's going to turn the tide a lot.
Do you have any information about lawsuits that you know?
Sure.
And what the line of attack on those are?
Yeah. So right now there are 3 in Florida, and this is just related to the schools, which I think should be our prime focus. Because the tale of the gender ideology won't end until we get to the youngest who's being affected. Okay, so in Florida, there's 3 lawsuits. There are 2 against public schools. One was filed a week ago. A 12-year-old girl attempted to hang herself twice at school. Her parents only found out about the second time. She had a counselor who was counseling her to take on the male persona despite being female. That's in Florida. There's another, the Little Johns, and they've been out there on the press. They had I believe, 13-year-old daughter who was coached into being trans-identified. There is also a family who, again, a Catholic school, they donated $1.35 million to the school. They want their money back because at that Catholic school, their daughter was called a male name, and they, of course, don't believe that the school was Catholic by following the gender ideology. So those are 3 suits in Florida. They are all parental right suits. In Wisconsin, there are 2 going on right now. There's one going to the Wisconsin Supreme Court. Again, the name and pronouns. In Virginia, in Loudoun County, 3 teachers have filed a lawsuit against the school district for their religious convictions in not having or being forced to call a boy a girl. I don't know where that case is right now. And then there's one that was filed in California in 2022, and that's at Spreckles Unified School District. That has been all over the news. And that is a 13-year-old girl who was brought into what their version of the GSA, which they called UBU, to hide it from the parents. I think Abigail Schreier did an article on it where these teachers admitted to having this club at lunchtime so that they could hide it from the parents. This young girl was first coached into believing that she's bisexual. Again, 7th grade. So, explain that one to me. And then took on a trans identity and had, severe depression and whatnot. But that's the first California case. And the parents in my group, they're lining up their attorneys. We need some medical malpractice attorneys. There's one in, I believe, in San Francisco that is looking for class action for puberty blockers, but we need the lawsuits. I think until the lawsuits really start hitting, I just think that's a really important piece. Mm-hmm. And I think we also need to vote family first. regardless of what party you're in. Find the candidate who is going to protect the family unit and parental rights. I never thought I'd be a one-issue voter. I am. So against my nature.
Well, trying times. Are you aware of I don't know if it would be a firm or some sort of, I don't know what it would be called. I know like a fund or a law fund or some collection of lawyers that are or group of parents that are connecting lawyers. Is there resources on supporting this or finding one for yourself if you're in such a situation?
There's the Alliance Defending Families.
Okay.
Is it called the Alliance? It's ADF is the, and they have taken on a couple of these lawsuits. The Dillon, DHILLON law group has taken the California case. WIT, Wisconsin Institute, another law firm in Wisconsin, but most of these are taken pro bono.
Oh, okay.
They're conservative groups, but that's another thing. We parents get a lot of grief claiming that we're conservative, and the majority of us, we're Democrats.
Well, you're basically alt-right at this point, so welcome to the club.
Yes, we get beaten up too because the only media that will print us is conservative media. Well, isn't that rich? We send articles to the New York Times and they just ignore us. We don't exist. They take down our comments. We don't exist. It's frightening. It's really frightening how opinions that are unliked by who? Like, who's the group? Who's the group that decides? 225-year-olds? Like, who is the group that decides? We tried to print on Zazzle, the website Zazzle. You can make T-shirts and mugs. Detransition Awareness Day postcards. They shut us down for hate speech. Who's the they? Who's the kid or the adult saying that that's hate speech? I mean, I just don't know what world we live in anymore.
It happened very, very quick, it seems.
What do you think? What do you think the answer is? What do you think is going to stop this?
Well, awareness, stories such as yours, stories such as the detransitioners, thought, rationality, reforming education to teach children how to think, like really how to reason. I think that there's a huge lack of reasoning. I don't think that we can take the internet away from kids, but it's not teaching them to doubt and to be uncomfortable, right? So just reverse engineering intelligence, reverse engineering the foundations of liberal democracy, which is, and republicanism, in the sense that we have a certain type of human being that has the values that can maintain and run a society. What are those? And then how do we have different groups with different belief systems get along with each other without succumbing to warfare or being taken over by a very zealous minority? What we're seeing is the overtaking of a very zealous minority that's preying upon empathy, preying upon compassion. At this point in time, there are other malignant groups out there that are more fundamentalist or more conservative, but at this time, coming from the left was not aware. The liberals, the Democrats, were not aware of the weaknesses on their side, and so it just kind of came through the media apparatuses that they, and then the school apparatuses that they staffed and functioned, and it also, you can go into the theory and the history of all this stuff, and you can see how there's a march through the institution, and it was enough generations on board for this, and then all of a sudden, I guess millennials who had been indoctrinated in this by the Gen Xers, by the Boomers, finally had enough headway to just take over. So just returning to some sort of American value, some sort of value, some sort of idea of what a human being is that can run society, whatever that would be. So we look at the different behaviors that works with that. So psychological health too. What is psychological health? What is it to be psychologically healthy?
Yeah, I think the phone. I mean, if you look at Jean Twenge's studies, the trajectory of mental health with the youth from 2010, suicidality, suicide, depression, it all goes straight up. You look at you transpose the graph on transgenderism, it's, the lines line up. I think the phone causes a schizophrenic brain. You're hit with so much information. And if you don't know how to sift through that information, you can't decipher what's fact and fiction. And I mean, it's just your brain. Our brains are not designed to be hit with 200 emails and Instagram, this and this tweet and that tweet. Like it just doesn't function that quickly. And so it basically gets into overload.
Yeah. Imagine trying to develop a brain in that situation. I mean, how do you have a sense of self? Where's your sense of self? I guess it's just identity. I'm just an identity. I'm just a box.
I'm an avatar.
I'm an avatar.
I can create it and dismantle it and rebuild it however I want. You're right. I mean, I think if the internet, we can't undo it, but if it weren't there, I think it'd be an easier lift to bring reality back, because there is no reality anymore. It's all self-created.
Oh, geez. Welcome to the postmodern wasteland. Welcome to the Matrix.
Yeah. All right. We all have systems now. I'm this on Wednesday. I'm this on Tuesday.
Are you, just to give a pinch of hope, even if you don't believe in hope at this point in time and history, have there been strategies that you've seen among your parent group to paths forward for these young men and women on leading them back to stability? Has that been something that you've seen happen, and little rays of hope or practices among other parents?
Yeah. So there are people in our group who have desisted children and detransitioned children. So desisted means that they did not medicalize in any manner, and then came back to their being comfortable in their true bodies. And then the detransitioners, those who have medicalized and have come back to being comfortable in their bodies. My daughter's one of those. And there is no, there's no path that works for each kid. They're all very different because they ended up here in a similar manner, but by different roads. In my daughter's case, I took a really hard line, and because I really had nothing left to do, I had nothing else left. So I took her phone. I stripped it of everything, no social media, nothing. It was a phone. I actually changed her telephone number. So, I could cut out all the bad people who had been calling her and nefarious friends who encouraged her. I changed schools. I sent her away to a month of camp with no online services. I mean, I did everything I could possibly do.
I don't mean this question to be, to give any details about your daughter and your identity, but what general kind of camp was it? Like a ropes camp, a horse camp, like a building fires in the wilderness camp?
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't for mental health. I think that was the point of it. I didn't want to send her to a place that was designed for mental health. It was designed for activity. I think it's really important that these kids understand the power of their bodies, how amazing their bodies are just the way they are, what strength that they have. And they need to be tired. I mean, it's almost like a baby, work them hard all day long, tire them out. They go to bed and they don't have the ability to ruminate about the gender ideology stuff. They don't have time to kind of spend all this time. What label am I? What mental health problem do I have? They're exhausted. They go to bed. And it brings them back into the real world where they can touch and smell and feel things. I think that's really important. And it's hard to do. Like, you can't sometimes do it. I didn't have the power as a parent to take her to go hiking with me and say, look at the beautiful scenery and ocean and look at the ducks. Like, she didn't want to do that with me. So I think that's important. To get them out of their heads and away from technology.
That brings up another good resource. Well, two good resources, like literally safe schools, like a list of schools that are not on board with the gender ideology or won't forward it, and then also lists of camps and other activities that aren't captured by this.
Yeah, it's getting harder to find those camps now, too. They're terrified of misgendering a kid, so you kind of have to do some research, and you have to be pretty direct in what you're asking the camp counselors. I was thinking of doing kind of a third world country trip this summer. Spend a month in Nepal. You're not going to really have time to think about your gender there. It's not an issue. Kind of getting them away from all the media that's promoting this. I mean, you can't pass a magazine stand now without look at this great trans person, celebrate, woman of the year, and it's a man. Like, these messages are confusing to these kids. It's concretizing it. It's making delusional thought reality for them, and you need to pull them away from it. It's not always easy to do. I mean, financially, it's a lot.
Yeah, a lot of parents are dependent on the public school system for teaching the children and engaging with them while the parent tries to make ends meet.
And that's in California they have a school choice. I think the Republican Party is looking for school choice, which would be, if it passes, you get $14,000 a year for your student, and you can educate your child at whatever school you want to, which sounds great in theory. But like I said, the private schools are captured too. Yeah. And $14,000 in California may or may not cover the tuition. And so for me, it's a dangerous proposition, although intriguing, because the wealthy kids will take the $14,000, go to the private school. And then the kids that are left in public school are the even, more marginalized kids. We get the greater divide economically. We get the greater divide racially. To me, it's terrible. We need to fix the public schools, but the CTA, the California Teachers Association, is so strong. Maybe teachers need to know that, when they pay their dues, they pay $25 each year that goes to the LGBTQ. They can opt out of it. That's taking $7.7 million away from the LGBTQ side of things. Maybe teachers should stop paying that $25. Maybe teachers who are tenured should start standing up. They can't be fired. Because I think there are teachers out there who are saying, whoa, what What is happening? Why are there now so many non-binary kids in my class? They've been teaching for 30 years, and now all of a sudden they have all these boys saying they're girls and girls saying they're boys. It can't be organic. We know that. These teachers know that. So they need to stand up too. We all need to stand up at the same time and call, am I allowed to curse?
Yeah. Yeah.
Call bullshit.
Oh,
Let's
that's
just call bullshit, you know?
It's a technical term now, and we're awash in
it. Good. It's one of my favorite words.
Sure, you got a lot of use out of it recently.
But come on. I mean, really? How many people really believe that Leah Thompson is a woman? The swimmer at Penn? I mean, if you've seen the bathing suit shots, you know.
Yeah.
We're all afraid to say it. Why aren't we saying it? Why aren't coaches saying it? Why aren't parents saying it? Why aren't students at Penn saying it?
They are, and they're routinely mocked and silenced and ganged upon.
Yeah. What if we all say it at the same time? Like Horton Hears a Who. They all had to yell at the same time. We all have to yell at the same time.
I didn't expect a Seuss reference, but thank you for that.
Another one of my favorites.
So in your parents group with the CPS coming after some of you guys, is there, I hope that there's, because I know that it happens in New Zealand and has happened in New Zealand, Australia, or at least in provinces or whatever they call their states out there. Is there yet a substantive fear that children can be now routinely taken from parents? And how are people forestalling that or getting ready to snap down on the CPS? And
so parents who have, and I don't have the metrics of this, but from my experience, parents who have a marriage that is stable don't tend to lose their kids. It has happened in another state, but I can't talk about that. But where it happens is when the parents are divorced and there's a custody battle. And that happens a lot because the stress that parents feel when a kid comes out as transgender is something that I can't even explain. It's just such a heavy burden that marriages implode. And so the one parent may be affirming and the other parent may be against it. And in that case, at least in the state of California, you can venture a guess who gets custody of that child. It's the affirming parent. So that it, and in fact, there is a document that is part of the National Education Association's website that will tell teachers, it instructs teachers that when there's a custody disagreement, that teachers should be prepared to testify on behalf of the parent who is affirming. So yes, so you can imagine what CPS is instructed and what the judges are probably learning, that the parent who is affirming, again, is the good parent, and the parent who is questioning is the bad parent. So the parent who affirms gets the child. And that is what my experience is with our family group. Not that CPS is coming in and yanking the kid out of a a solid family. But that's not going to surprise me if that starts happening too. These kids also, in looking at my daughter's phone, they coach each other. And my daughter was 13. She was looking at emancipation. Older kids were telling her what to say to emancipate. She was looking at attorneys to hire to emancipate. So, they're given.
And I'm sure she was promised a great, wonderful, loving family that is her real family that will take care of her. But I'm sure that for anybody who goes down that route, they end up on the street. They end up with no one. I think that the tendency would be that this family doesn't actually care in a material way, such as parents do. But just a wild guess.
Your guess is correct. Your guess is correct. I mean, the people who take these then runaway kids or kids who don't like their parents, who do you think takes them? A nice, solid family? No. Trans activists will take them. Who knows who take these kids? But who wants a 14-year-old kid that's a runaway and trans identifying? Or they go into a group home and, then they get sucked into a life of drugs and worse. So, but they're told that that's better than living with their transphobic, bigoted parents. That's what they read online. That's what they're sold a book of goods that doesn't exist.
Wow. Okay.
And again, these are 14, 15-year-old brains that they're not able to think about the reality.
To go one step further to a place I've only heard rumors about, but the foster care system and this, and it must not be, in 10 years from now, we're going to have a whole lot of ruined lives.
You think? Because here in California, they're so smart. The legislators are so smart.
It's California. You guys know everything, don't you?
Oh, gosh, we're so smart. So, what we do here is the law is that if you're 12 and you are in foster care, you get to dictate your gender health. 12.
Your gender health?
Yeah, you get to dictate whether you get those surgeries or your cross-sex hormones at the right age of 12.
Oh, okay. Okay, wait, what? A 12-year-old? Okay.
Yeah.
Are they taught biology, in 5th and 6th grade, so they are fully informed with their own health trajectory and how their body works? Because California would definitely educate the child to have them have informed consent. That's the only ethical thing to do.
Well, I don't know. According to some California teachers, biology means that there's more than two sexes, not genders, sexes. So I don't know, even if they are taught biology, I don't know what kind of biology they're taught. But I mean, I know you're being facetious here, but 12, the kids dictate their own gender medical.
And the state pays for that too.
It sure does. And one with, and there's no mental health requirement either. So, I mean, I'm sure these 12-year-olds who are in the foster care system have no kind of trauma in their background. Zero. I mean, zero. So they are certainly able to consent to what is going to happen to their bodies and certainly be able to see the future, even though most people, all of them, don't have the faculties until they're 25. This special group of 12-year-olds have got it all figured out. Yeah. So, what's interesting in California, they sterilized, they have a history. Like 30 years ago, they sterilized a bunch of mentally ill people, and they just, I think, voted to give some restitution to these people that they sterilized. Well, gosh, imagine what that restitution dollar amount's going to be when they're sterilizing all these kids in foster care.
I mean, you're being pretty optimistic that California is still going to be around to pay reparations the way it's headed.
Yeah.
Little Sodom and Gomorrah vibes down there, sorry to say.
Yeah, I'm not sure how long I'm going to be in California. I mean, this is 12-year-old, 12. Think of, I convinced an 11-year-old, literally, that there was a monster in the woods. I had him screaming, running, because there was a pair of jeans hanging from a tree, and that there was the Gene Man lived there, and he just went tearing out of the woods. And this kid has the brain in a year to decide whether he's going to keep his body parts or not. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they can consent. They can consent to nothing. Why we are thinking that children have the brains of adults, I'm still looking for the study. I've been looking for the study for 2 years where it says that the brain doesn't mature until the age of 25, except for gender identity.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you have a male brain and a female body, of course that male brain would develop twice as fast as every other brain. It just makes sense, you know?
Right. Oh, shoot. Well, what about the converse, though? What about the boys who think that they're girls?
It's a whole other subset.
I guess they'd have to wait till they're, 30, 40?
Yeah, they're
or not at all. In your book, they're the female brain is
I'm still developing. I don't know, man. There is specifically with foster care, everybody who is paying taxes in California is culpable for the mutilation of the bodies of children. It is a stain. I'm sorry to come down. It's really hard for me to be, I try to be like this neutral person, but with the children stuff, it's like, this is, I mean, okay, you know, even Jesus, nice guy, you know, whether he was God or not, but even he, pretty nice guy, said it's better to like tie a millstone around your neck and throw yourself into a river than to harm children. I think he was onto something about that. So I kind of get on shaky moralistic ground when we talk about children, but it's unconscionable. What's going on?
There should be no shaky ground for you. No, this is no. There's not even a question. That's why I'm here. That's why, even though I could just go merrily on my way in my life now that my daughter's pretty much desisted. No, they're messing with children, and who is there to fight for them? We all have to be there to fight for them. I mean, if the state is, and we're complicit in every manner. I mean, we're paying for it through our insurance. You know, the California insurance, we pay for that. Our schools, we're paying for that. We're paying for harming children. We're paying for CPS. We're paying for these kids in foster care. Yeah, we're harming children every single day. And you talk about compassion when people actually realize that, and that, you know, these kids are not committing suicide because they're trans identified, but they are going to have to live with ruined bodies and sterility. That's a fact. So yeah, it's repulsive to me. It's absolutely repulsive. And it's so sad to me that you're going to have to cover my face here, and that I use a pseudonym. And I can't use my real name to fight for kids. Not yet. I will. But what world do we live in that parents can't protect their kids and can't be vocal? It can't be their true selves. I don't understand how we got here.
So,
Happy day.
resources. What are some resources for parents in your situation along the different arcs that you've been in? Advocacy, help for their kids. What would you recommend?
Well, there's an international group called GenSpec.
Yep.
There's PIT,
No?
which is a Substack with parents writing their stories.
Okay.
Um,
PITT.com or something?
yeah, and it's parents
All
of
links will be in the
yeah.
description.
And sorry, I'm going on my computer for a second because
It's all good.
I want Advocates Protecting Children. And there's PEC. There's a lot of groups out there right now. There's the ROGD Kids, which is the parent support group. And there's a lot of books. I think Desist, Detox, and Detrans by Maria Keffler was the one that was most helpful to me, in that it gave me the words and the questions to ask my child. I mean, Abigail Schreier's, Irreversible Damage tells the story. But if you want to know how to start getting your child out of this, there's some really good podcasts too on how to speak. And now these groups they're just growing, and they're putting together letters that parents can send to schools.
Mm-hmm. I like your recommendation of a month of hard labor too. Kind of helpful.
Yeah. My daughter still talks about how awful it was, and then I was like, "Yes, I did the right thing."
You sent her to the mines to like get gemstones, something.
Yeah, it sounds really harsh, but yeah, that's what I did. I didn't have anything left, and she's still young. I still have a long way to go. I can't say that we're out of the woods. There's so much pull on this. It's a Herculean task to keep your child safe in this world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and incredibly, it's unimaginable, and it's a problem that people aren't going to realize this for a while, or a lot of people haven't realized this, that the people who are saying that they are there to protect your child and to raise your child and to help you get the most opportunity for your child are at the helm of just some despicable, absolutely indefensible child abuse.
Yeah, absolutely. Most of them who want to help your child, they don't have children. They know nothing about kids, except that they want to take yours. Yeah.
So, it seemed like you're dead set on leaving everybody not smiling, but do you have like a cool hobby or a video game that you play? Are you into like World of Warcraft or do you have a project that you do in your garage that you don't mind sharing? Something fun.
I stay off computers as much as I can. I think
Okay.
they're time suck. I'm more of an outdoors person.
Oh, cool. Walks.
So I run, and
oh, cool.
I have a dog that keeps me busy.
I heard the dog. We heard the
dog. Sorry about that. Sorry about that. We're having this during walk time.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely wants to walk. Yeah, no, I mean, mostly I've become a bore. Unfortunately, this overwhelms all of the fun that I used to be, but I still take some time.
Well, I thank you on behalf of myself, and I also thank you on behalf of people who might stumble into this interview and take courage and take insight from your story. So thank you for being willing, so far as you've been able to speak up here and elsewhere.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate what you're doing. You were one of the first podcasts I stumbled upon.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. And I was like, oh, I'm not crazy. Or maybe we're crazy together. Who knows?
Well, yeah, again, it goes back to neurodivergence. I'm like, I'm not, I don't know where you are, but I'm not totally sane. Just doing my best to be chill. So.
Yeah, I need a reality check. Well, thank you so much for having me. And then
Stop the recording.
Yeah.